There's been growing public outcry about the rising cost of living in Nigeria. This has led to protests in some states in Nigeria, and the president has reacted to the crisis of cost of living by taking some executive actions, including ordering the release of grains from the National Reserve to force down prices of essential goods. The National Assembly has also mooted the idea of a price control legislation, starting from Kano to Niger. Now in parts of Lagos, women and youth have continued to express their hardship and hunger through street protests, and no one can say where the next protest may erupt. Tonight, we look at how dire the situation is. What is the driving cause of the rising cost of foodstuffs? What actions should the government take in short term to mitigate this crisis? What are the long-term solutions to food sufficiency in the country? To discuss this is Dr. Sam Amadi, a RISE analyst. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you, Chris.
Is Nigeria truly sitting on a keg of gunpowder because of this food crisis? And with the assurances that the president keeps giving day in, day out?
I think we're actually sitting on the keg of gunpowder, but I think we're perhaps lucky that it has not yet exploded since. I mean, in many parts of the world and in history, things have gotten wrong or bad for less. So
in Algeria, in the Arab countries, the slight increase on the prices of bread and the rest, confectionaries.
And then, I mean, that led to the spring. So right here, I don't know whether we say we are lucky, but essentially, we have seen telltale signs that things could get worse. And the real problem here is that government, apart from the technical solutions, even the political leadership, the empathy is not there. For example, we talk about memos suggesting somebody requested for 500 million to constitute a committee to look at minimum wage. So the question is, this is a difficult time for the people of Nigeria, and it's also a booming time for people in power.
Political leaders.
So that contrast.
The National Assembly got theirs sometime last month, 153 million for, brand new Jeep.
Absolutely.
They didn't buy in Nigeria.
They have to report it. Again, now there's somebody saying give us 500 million for a committee. I mean, committee to review.
No, they are going to travel around the world, so that they can get details of other countries, how it is done.
The tragedy is that we have a crisis that requires a lot more responsibility in terms of leaders really bending down, hunkering down, forgoing all these excesses, removing the ceremonies of governance, being functional, lean, functional, and decisive, and they're not doing that. The chief of staff.
Where is the sense of patriotism here? Will the second stanza of the national anthem, really build up patriotism?
Well, they sing it every day. I mean, it's the national prayer now. So, as part of it, we don't have any patriotism. Again, you see, the political recklessness and the fact that the Nigerian leaders have a cynical view of protests. Where they'll come, they'll gather.
And they'll get tired. They'll thin out. I mean, they'll go back hungry again.
They will borrow the Bible verse and say they'll gather in vain. So they think that the gathering is actually in vain. But that's a dangerous assumption, because what we are seeing now is it could become anarchy, is that it will be unguarded, unmanaged, not NLC this time,
snowball,
not civil society this time. And then the fact that
it will be the real people.
Exactly, and the fact that this is also increasing criminality. Look at the stories about daylight kidnapping. I mean, daredevil. They don't care whether they're caught because there's little option. So the thickening crisis is not just about protests, it's also about endemic criminality and the collapse of social capital.
Dr. Amadi, you just raised, a very key issue that has created a lot of curiosity and anxiety amongst Nigerians. Those kidnappers caught, do you see how filthy they look? Would you believe that those are the people asking for the hundreds of millions of naira?
No,
are there no people behind them?
No, it's very clear. I mean, this is an industry. that is deep and
A
broad.
new industry to destroy the fabrics of this country.
Government is not responding well because government itself, you really need to be deep and then deal with everybody. Again, you have push and pull factor. First, criminality and corruption in public offices, in security institutions, weaken the fight. Two, you also have desperation that these people who are poor are prepared to be enlisted for pittance to undertake this very. Look at the bus that was kidnapped from Lagos to Lagos Benin Road. I mean, God is good. I think where
the driver was killed. They took everybody and just
the little baby.
Yeah.
Now this happens day in, day out, and the point is that the hunger, the food crisis, the living crisis, and it's surprising that the government could say we are the cheapest in the world. I mean, the presidency set up a message and says we're the cheapest in the world. The question then is, what is driving this now? The Minister of Agriculture has talked about we need to close down food,
border again.
And then
now people are coming from across the border to buy our food.
Governor of Niger State says it's a crime to take
bulk food now outside.
So this is more like necromancy. It's just conjuring.
Yeah.
The real thing is that it looks like, first, government is out of its depth in terms of thinking around what to do. Second is that there is uncontrolled communication. There's a lack of seriousness. Because even if you don't have the solution, the process for seeking solution should be disciplined, intense, and focused. So we have a crisis of epochal nature, phenomena in terms of rising foodstuff. We see constraint in supply side because agriculture, the banditry, the terrorism. They're not saying that we didn't plan for off-season planting. So you're going to have shortage in food supply. And then you have the fact that you're also going to have increase in prices. You're also going to have logistic crisis that fits into the cost. And then government is saying, look, what can they do? Now, this is a time that you can actually bring more money and deal with mitigation. It's in the crisis of food supply and pricing. Is that government does three things. One, if you can't increase supply of goods to further the price, which sometimes you can't do because of the nature of planting season, even the grain reserve is limited. People are even arguing whether we have enough
reserve at all, because reserves have been opened several years, several times.
Actually, so even if you get, it's not enough. So
have you ever gotten any grain from that reserve?
That's the point. So you need to also think around. For the short term, we can't get these prices down, except we need to mitigate the poor people. This is where you now have to think in terms of what do we do to provide access. For example, if you help people deal with free education, deal with healthcare, then they can push funds meant for those things to deal with basic food stuff.
You just have to deal with the basic foods first. The people are hungry. And in the midst of this, look at what happened in Kano. Warehouses hoarding these commodities. Why are they doing that?
Because they are also, people are talking about, you don't need to control price, but you can control anti-economic behavior. I mean, within the competition antitrust law, if people are hoarding prices, then they are creating artificial scarcity. So that's something that government can go against. I mean, government may not tell you this is the price must sell, but government can say you can't keep this.
But a court has ordered the government to fix prices.
Well, it's a week now. Let's see how it's going to implement it, because if fixing the prices, presume the government has the information asymmetry. Does have intelligence, pricing intelligence to know which product should sell for what. You have to build. It's the problem with Nigeria that we've not built the infrastructure for even price control, because you have to do a lot of information build up to say this is what cell phone should sell, this is what Gary should sell, this is how you should sell.
But there used to be a price control board and the rest.
In those days, we were running what they call DRIGIST, that's state-based economic planning.
Yeah.
We've moved to so-called market-based. So in the market-based process, you're going to use nudging, policy tools to force market behavior to change. You're not going to use confiscatory coercive force, it's okay.
But where does that work in the world? What works really? It's, production and more production and more production.
Absolutely, that's the supply side. So you have to produce, but the point I'm saying, if government says we're not producing, the farms are not producing. Banditry, criminality has driven away farmers in many places. The food supply value chain is truncated. Logistic costs to move foods, some food spoil, and so this create the pricing crisis. But the point then, if you want to solve it, you have to solve it at intelligible points. Supply side, you don't have much leeway for now. The demand side, can you cushion the capacity of people to consume more. So the question is, this is where subsidy comes in. Anybody who says that if you subsidize access to energy in Europe, you also can subsidize access to food. The reason why the US government or European government subsidize farmers is because essentially that is an essential sector that not just for well-being, also drives economic development. So I think that government should think broadly around saying in the short term, we need to stop hunger and starvation. The FOA has said that there will be increase in hunger. So mentioned Yobe, Zamfara, a few states, where there's going to see escalation of starvation, hunger, and that leads to criminality.
And that's going to fuel crime.
Crime.
We saw in France and Germany how farmers, demonstrated against certain government policies for several weeks.
Those places have security structure
to
mitigate, but we don't even have, if you say an upsurge of crime, we don't even have the capacity to mitigate it, to manage, to contend. So really, we are entering into a Hobbesian state that might be frightening, but the key issue here is that we need three things to happen, in my view. First is symbolism. Government has to really become disciplined. You cannot be dealing with this crisis of epical nature and you are dealing with 500 million for setting up government as usual. Today I was coming for the airport and the ministers, if you see the entourage, they had to block everybody from moving until the minister, my minister, I think Minister of Immigration, so people...
Minister of what?
Of Interior. I mean, so it's really sad that at this time...
The same minister again.
At this time, they are still, living big.
In squandermania.
Living big. Illusion of grandness and grandiose, illusion.
While the people suffer.
So it means that they're not focused on it. They are cynical about this crisis, and they feel that somehow the people will make their noise and probably...
I hope they are not. I hope they are not caught in the uprising the day the people will rise up against all this hunger, maladministration.
And if you map it to the fragility index, Nigeria is one of the countries that are very fragile. If you look at the underdevelopment index, poverty index, crisis index, fundamentalism index, everything is bad. So you don't want to have food crisis and all the anarchical energy can throw up.
Just like the French Revolution, what caused it?
And the problem with the revolution is that since there's no revolutionary vanguard here, our revolution will end up becoming anarchy and dangerous for national development.
Oh, absolutely.
We need to nip it in the bud by providing very strategic and focused, and that's what's missing. Empathy, compassion, speaking to the people, engaging them, and showing your hand, show that you are committed. You cannot live in luxury and tell people
live in abject poverty.
So this crisis can be headed off if government is responsible, disciplined, and then bring people together to seek for solutions, one of which will be deal with supply side, production. I mean, in the short term, it might not happen. In the short term, deal with mitigation, provide subsidy to the people. Look, any economist that says in time of their underconsumption of essential products, that well-managed subsidy is a wrong economic choice, is an economist that has failed the first test that Dudley Sears set. Say, what's happening to poverty, employment, what's happening to inequality? These three tests test what's happening to the economy. So you can't have an economy where people are starving and you are told that you cannot mitigate that suffering when your long-term productivity increases. That's what a good economist, and that's what government should be thinking about now. What can we do to stop this starvation? What can we do to get people off the street and give them hope in the short term? And in the medium term, how do we improve the security condition, improve the macroeconomic condition, and then allow more food production to come in, and then help with intra-country transport, logistics to reduce the cost of food moving from one end to another. And also
your roads, you don't have roads. No roads. Your roads are not good
farmers
now.
Back to the farm, because look, farmers are not in the farms because of insecurity. And for the past 8 years, not just this government inherited it, but Buhari government did not focus a lot on this banditry. They politicized it.
It never cared about how Nigerians were mauled in their homes, in their farms
today
and the
you're saying
rest.
there's high prices because apart from the crisis from Russia-Ukraine war, with all the under supply, the key issue here now
that's wheat. We're talking of our own basic staples and the rest.
We're not producing enough, and you're not having the capacity to take them to the market on time. Again, you are not also incentivizing more production. And we're talking about off-season agriculture, and the minister says they failed to do that. I mean, why would anybody fail to plan for that, knowing that you're going to have seasonal shortages, which is the essence of off-season farming. It's just like the issue of power. People say, okay, when the rains are in, you know that at a point you're going to have undersupply from hydro. So you plan supplementation. How do you put something on the grid that will take care of that shortage? That is the essence of governance. So what we're seeing now is that the government needs to, improve on its effectiveness, state capacity, but that doesn't go together with the level of the pompous business as usual. We see this consumption, we see all kinds of fraud, corruption. I mean, it's really sad that somebody can request in this time that a 500 million should be used to put together a committee to talk about whether we should increase wages. 500 million will go a long way to pay the wages of civil servants.
Please, the government should set up a committee to come and review Nigerian media laws and the rest of that. You and I can be there. And you request for $1 billion naira. No, it's so tragic. That we sit on that committee.
It's tragic. I mean, we need to change really the way we manage governance.
Really and tragic.
That's why people are
it's becoming a big tragedy.
No, it is. It is
a big tragedy. What a shame.
Big one.
Thanks so very much, Associate Professor of Law, Arise Analyst, Dr. Sam Amadi, for coming.